I started out 2024 by playing some Pokémon Violet DLC. I had a pretty easy time getting reaccustomed to Violet's gameplay mechanics, and was able to just jump right back into it. In the first part of the DLC, the Teal Mask, the protagonist and a few other students from Uva Academy take a plane to Kitakami, a rural region well known for partaking in the yearly Festival of Masks to honor their 3 Pokémon deities. The visit to Kitakami reminded me of simpler times playing outside until the sun set with no care in the world, as well as my childhood desires of being a foreign exchange student in another country. Playing as the protagonist, my responsibilities solely consisted of learning about Pokémon and battling for fun. The protagonist meets a pair of siblings that I really could care less about, despite them being a driving part of the DLC's story. Upon my return to the game, I was instantly reintroduced to the fact that there are so many random items scattered on the ground throughout the entire game. I spent a lot of time ignoring objectives and instead found myself running around, exploring, and clicking on every glimmer I saw. During a phase of mindless exploring, I came across and eventually captured a shiny Surskit. I still really enjoyed raids because I liked looking at how other people customized their characters, and I liked obtaining all the experience gaining items you get from winning. My playthrough mostly consisted of shifting back and forth from participating in raids to exploring Kitakami on my Miraidon cycle. My favorite DLC side quest was the Blood Moon Ursaluna quest. This quest line motivated me to capture every new Pokémon I encountered in Kitakami, since you needed to capture 150 Pokémon in the Kitakami Pokédex in order to start the quest. Capturing all the Pokémon also reminded me about how satisfying it was to add multiple new Pokédex entries in the game, since it's actualized by the visual of adding new books onto a shelf. As the DLC story progressed, I found that I didn't care about all the legendary Pokémon because they didn't look cool to me. I guess the main thing I liked about the DLC was the concept of being an exchange student at a whole different school, being able to explore all the different areas of that school, and being able to interact with some of the students. Finally, just like the main game, I appreciate how Blueberry Academy portrays alternate ways of teaching that doesn't always involve sitting in a classroom. Overall, the DLC was aight. I picked up NBA 2K23 when I learned there was a WNBA cover variant, and I haven't played a basketball game since NBA Jam on the PlayStation Underground demo disc for the PS1. Basketball is one of my favorite sports, and not once have I ever had the urge to play it in a video game until I found out you can play for the WNBA. For one, learning the controls was a bit daunting for me in the beginning. There were a lot of very specific things I wanted to do during games that required a good understanding of all the controls, and I did not feel like memorizing every single command. So I ended up being super basic with my team's passing, defense, and shooting, though I was able to finagle a couple good backdoor passes, which was cool. Regardless, I did really enjoy living out one of my many childhood dreams of playing in the WNBA and created my own character playing for my favorite team, the Minnesota Lynx. For further immersion and later hilarity, I downloaded the 2K app and scanned my face to create a character. Honestly, I thought it'd be worse. I enjoyed playing a bunch of games in career mode, playing against some of the greats of the sport. For me, 2K23 was really fun for what it was because I really love everything about the sport, and it's just so amazing how much customization you can make to your player in regards to their dribbling, shooting style, free throw routines, choosing what type of defense you want, among so many other customization choices. I also know that my inner younger self really appreciates seeing some of my favorite players finally make it into a video game, but for the most part, I'll stick to real basketball. Helldivers II sort of came out of nowhere for me. I saw the trailer a couple weeks before the game came out, and it immediately reminded me of Mass Effect 3's multiplayer, so I was sold. I picked the game up on day one and played the game a lot for the first month it was out. I liked the third-person vantage point of the combat and preferred fighting the mechs over the bugs because, for me, they were more satisfying to destroy. I favored all the Eagle stratagems, the Rover, and the anti-material rifle throughout my missions. The game's soundtrack was composed by Wilbert Roget II, and it was one of the best parts of the game for me. A cup of Liber-Tea was always so liberating to hear while seeing yourself and your teammates falling through the sky as inevitable forces destined to wreak all kinds of havoc upon landing. I had a pretty fun time playing with friends and did not really enjoy playing the game with randos. I had my fair share of glitches and connectivity issues just like everyone else, but these issues never overshadowed the fun I experienced actually playing the game. The only combat mechanic I wish the game had more of was melee. After playing the game for about 35 hours, I reached level 17 and got a bit tired of the game's repetitiveness, so I stopped playing. Regardless of this, I made some great memories fighting for democracy with my friends.
Have a taste of democracy!
I had the urge to replay Sayonara Wild Hearts on the Switch, so that's exactly what I did. I initially played the digital version of the game back in 2020 when I first picked up my Switch Lite, then later bought a physical copy of the game from Limited Run Games. Enveloped in hues of blue and purple, the main character rides and fights her way through each level to the game's soundtrack of techno music that goes along with the high-octane combat sequences. I really liked how the game was so quick to bring the main character back to where they left off in the level prior to dying. This really made the game go by a lot faster and helped me with the timing of avoiding certain insta-death obstacles in each level. The game is short, taking only about an hour to collectively complete every level, but it was definitely a lot of fun to revisit. Astral Chain has easily become one of my favorite games on the Switch. I first played the game last month while sitting on a plane on my way to the Dominican Republic. I was instantly hooked on the game's visuals, and so was the guy sitting next to me. In the game, the year is 2078, and a set of twins join a special ops police unit called Neuron, whose main purpose is to battle chimeras on Earth and in the astral plane. You choose to play as either the twin brother or sister. I chose to play as the sister and enjoyed the game's limited character customization. Whichever sibling you choose becomes a silent protagonist, except for some grunts and gasps here and there, while the opposite sibling and every other character in the game does the rest of the talking. The game's story and cutscenes seemed like they were cut right out of a shonen anime, and I was all for it. The game's devs described Astral Chain as a synergic action game where you utilize two on-screen characters during combat. Legion combat was a lot of fun, and getting used to the controls did not take long. Players are able to control legions as far as their chains go, to attack enemies or interact with specific obstacles in the environment. After each mission, you could maintain your legion by cleaning up the red matter buildup on its body. This was satisfying, and I don't really know if anything bad happens if you don't do it. You could even customize your legion's colors, abilities, and special attacks. The sword and arm legion were my favorite to utilize during combat, with my most used move for the sword legion being the round sword attack. Aside from your legion, you yourself can deal some good damage against enemies with the Neuron-issued X-Baton that splits into Baton, Blaster, and Gladius mode for all your different combat style needs. As you simultaneously control your main character and legion, you are given the freedom to unleash all kinds of devastating combos onto Chimera and human enemies alike. After completing missions, you could run around Neuron HQ to interact with NPC characters, feed cats, do side quests, maintain your legion, and train. I loved all the lappy side quests in the game, and especially loved the minigame where you passed out balloons. My least favorite side quests in the game were the chase missions. As cool as it was to be able to control and switch between every type of legion, I kind of wish the other officers that initially had legions could get them back, so that I wasn't the only OP officer, for the most part. The game also had motorcycle combat towards the beginning and end of the game. These were incredibly fun and reminded me of the motorcycle combat in the Final Fantasy VII Remake. The game's visuals had a likable, dark, and grungy art style with some post-apocalyptic cyberpunk. The Chimera designs were so detailed and demonic looking, and the legions had a primal, yet valiant look to them that I absolutely loved. This game had so many parts that were just straight up boss rushes, and the combat was just so loud, over the top, and flashy. I wouldn't have it any other way. The music in the game was also very good. The part where the protagonist fights her brother while gaining a specific power-up was made so much more epic with the timing of Dark Hero that played during that combat sequence. I love this game so much, and took my sweet time playing it because I didn't want it to end. I knew the game was special when I spent my free time in the DR playing it whenever I was in the hotel room. There's some pretty good replay value for this game as well because I actually want to play as the brother for my next playthrough, whenever that will be. Prior to Astral Chain, I was going through a bit of a gaming burnout, and this game pulled me the fuck out of that so quick. It's definitely one of my favorite games I've played so far this year. I visited one of my local retro game stores and picked up Unpacking on the PS5. This is a pretty popular indie game where you experience each era of the main character's life as she moves from place to place. It was a unique take to interactive storytelling and a nice experience overall. But by the final 2 Unpacking sessions, I didn't really care about the aesthetics and mostly just placed everything anywhere I could so that I could finish up the game.